Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a forest area and kind of an ecosystem that is really interesting. It's kind of the border between two forest areas, the western slopes of the Coast Mountains, which are the kind of humid, um, rain year-round, well, a lot of snow too as you get up in elevation. Uh, where that kind of meets the cooler, drier eastern slopes of the Coast Mountains. So we're right up about 4,000 feet ish, or 1,400-meter elevation mark in Manning Provincial Park in southwest BC. So this forest is moved from kind of the cedar hemlock dominated forest lower down, and now we have a Anglan spruce, subalpine fir dominated forest with some lodgepole, scattered cedar, scattered hemlock, and a few Douglas fir, which actually to me look like the interior variety, but I'm not 100% on that. But you can see here we have a couple very tall. On the right hand side is Anglan spruce, and on the left hand side is subalpine fir. They grow very big here. You can see that as we kind of pan up here again, you'll see that the crowns are very thin, made to shed a lot of snow. This area would get an enormous amount of snow in the winter, and the trees need to be able to kind of handle that by shedding that snow. Especially, you can see the thinner crown on the left of that subalpine fir. They're just designed to shed enormous amounts of snow without damaging the branches. So clearly the spruce also were able to, living in this area. So anyway, we're gonna take a look around and see what we find. Like I said, it's fascinating how big some of these spruce grow here, and we'll show you some of those. And wasn't expecting a lot here for large trees, but this area has really impressed me. So let's take a look around. Okay, so here's a good example of one of the biggest, what I believe to be is an Anglan spruce that I've ever seen. You can see we're looking up into the crown here. The base is likely a diameter well over a meter, maybe in that 4-foot range, 1.1, 1.2 meters. And here's an example of some of the cones at the base. You can see it definitely has the Anglan spruce like scales on the cone, but just an amazing example of an old growth Anglan spruce. I mean, it's hard to estimate how high it is. 150 feet, maybe, 50 meters, something like that. So just a real amazing example of, what even at a higher elevation forest like this, what kind of production there can be if it's left alone with ample rain, snow. This area certainly would get very high snowfall. Manning Provincial Park, we're roughly at, I think it's about 1,400 meters elevation, and the typical old growth British Columbia rainforest species are fading out here. The hemlock, there's no cedar in the area, and being replaced with the subalpine fir, lodgepole, and Anglan spruce. And you can see from this example that there still are some pretty big trees here. Very impressive. Here's actually a pretty good example of the kind of undergrowth in kind of a clearing here, a little more sun. We have ostrich ferns, things like that. All these types of ferns, interestingly enough, also cow parsnip, we're used to seeing on the eastern side of the divide of the Rockies. Here's some cow parsnip here that is just finished flowering. You can see it's gone to seed here. But really interesting that even in the coast mountain range here that we're in, we're kind of above the wet side onto kind of the higher elevation passes leading into the rain shadow. But the species we see here are very similar to what we see on the eastern side of the Rockies, in the wetter areas of the eastern side of the Rockies. So pretty interesting. Here we're looking just kind of down a creek that comes out of a small lake called 20-Minute Lake. And it's actually a really great area to see what all the kind of identifiers that you want to see on an old growth area are right here. So you see a lot of timber, or coarse woody debris as they call it, in the creek. Over the creek you see standing dead trees. You see large trees of different species kind of at their height of their growth. You see a wide variety of undergrowth. There's alder, all sorts of different trees growing down in the undergrowth. A lot of herbaceous plants and that type of thing. Here we can even see some cow parsnip, these types of things. But it's all these things are what you want to see when you are wondering, you know, has this area been logged, or how old is this? How long ago was that? And this area, from what I can tell, has not been logged. It may have burned in the past, but probably not in the last couple hundred years, maybe even 300 years. So really impressive area. Definitely an old growth area, and well worth seeing. Okay, here's another area nearby where we've obviously had some sort of disturbance. So whether it's a blowdown fire or whatever it was, there's clearly been a disturbance here. And the dominant tree in this area are young and fairly small lodgepole pine. We do have some small fir growing there as well, but just goes to show you that cycle. You know, it never fails in an area like this where lodgepole is present. As soon as there's a disturbance, they really take off and dominate the canopy for, you know, could be 50 years, could be 80 years, 100 years, something like that, as the other trees grow up in the shade and then start to take over and turn it into what we were looking at previously. So yeah, really interesting. Any disturbance, and definitely lodgepole dominant in this area. So here we have an example of a few of the trees that are more common as you go down the western slope. We have here western red cedar, and these are just very small and not, certainly not a dominant tree anymore as we get up into this elevation here. And then another one commonly seen with the red cedar is the hemlock here. So here we have a hemlock, and this one I'm not entirely sure if this is a western or the mountain interior type variety, but yeah, so you can see here we have a hemlock, some cedar, and this is kind of the remnants of that type of forest as we move kind of over the pass, higher in elevation to the drier, cooler eastern slopes of the coastal range, which also are quite similar to the Rockies in a lot of ways. How the west side of the Rockies, much wetter, cedar, hemlock in areas, and then as you move up over the divide, turns into kind of a spruce type forest. So you can see on the other side of the trail here, we do have a very big Anglan spruce, very big and tall. We're right at the side of a small pond or lake called 20-Minute Lake, right beside a campground in Manning Provincial Park. So anyway, a real kind of interesting area. I mean, it's kind of the border between two worlds, forest-wise here. Highly recommend Manning Provincial Park. So yeah, we'll end the video there, and come and check it out if you are in the area. And thanks for watching.